Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. We're glad you're here. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Yep. Check out the podcast also below in the description.
This week, we're going to Niners camp. We'll be live after Niners camp, so check us out on the channel and on the YouTube feed. John, Deebo Samuel has signed. Ian Rappaport tweeting at 4:38 Pacific. The numbers, a 3-year, $73.5 million contract, 3-year extension, $73.5 million contract with $58 million guaranteed, 58.1 guaranteed, by the way.
Ooh.
So once upon a time, Jeff Darlington reported that Deebo Samuel was demanding trade, and on July 31st, Deebo Samuel signed a contract to stay with the 49ers. They got it done.
It's been a long road since that tweet, right? Because we had a draft. Would Deebo be traded leading up to the draft? And the draft happened. And I think it was pretty clear the moment that happened that they could not do it because they couldn't trade for future draft picks, right? And then you and I were at OTAs, and he showed up. Now, part of that was the financial incentive that now that they can't take it back. You know, if he didn't show up, it was $95,000. Even hell, if he got traded in camp, he would still owe that money. So that was never going to happen. And, you know, it felt inevitable once these contracts were getting done. Kyle was very, very positive every time he talked about it. Now, the one guy, and it's going to be interesting, and he's avoided having a mic in front of his mouth, is Deebo Samuel, who has not commented on this. I don't think he can avoid that starting tomorrow, where I'm sure there's a press conference. If not, I would imagine it's tomorrow. And is going to get asked about this. Am interested. I wouldn't totally shock me. A little curveball. You know, I never totally asked. Yeah, I see a little bit of a backpedal, like most DBs do when he's coming down the sideline. But at the end of the day, when something like this gets done, who really cares about all that stuff? Even though it's still part of it's something to kind of keep an eye on when you ask questions like, do you not want to be a running back anymore? All that type of stuff. But ultimately, money talks, shit walks. He's on the Niners. I think we all agree Deebo Samuel and Kyle Shanahan are just a perfect marriage. It's like little white slot receivers with Josh McDaniels, or the Patriot offense. Certain things just fit. Deebo Samuel, Kyle Shanahan has just, last year, but really the last several years when he's been on the field, it makes a lot of sense for what Kyle wants in his offense. I don't think either of us or anyone, hell, maybe even Deebo, quite realize how great he'd be as a running back. But I would expect, the greatness to continue. And I think Trey Lance, who's getting, no pads yet, been getting his ass kicked in practice, should be very, very happy to have
top 3 defense, John. Haven't you heard? That's why it's been happening. You're right. This comes a week after the last Tuesday was when John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan had their press conference, and Kyle Shanahan said, beyond a shadow of a doubt, Trey Lance is our quarterback. And since then, there have been practices, and Jimmy's been there, and Jimmy's been wearing the catapult bra on the sidelines, and Trey Lance has been wearing the helmet that talks to the head coach, and he's holding the football, and he's the guy behind center. And so,
you think Jimmy's hiding in with the fans?
Jimmy could stroll over there with the fans. Why not? Still under contract, getting paid to do something. I guess might as well go sign some autographs, take some pictures, kiss some babies. But this is all part of this guy has to be there for the Trey Lance plan to work this year, right? Deebo Samuel has to be there for the Trey Lance plan to work. And I think Trey Lance is part of the reason why they never really wanted to trade Deebo. In addition to the fact that Deebo proved to be one of the most valuable players in the league last year. That's the primary reason. But the clock lines up for Deebo Samuel to be in his prime as Trey Lance. He's 25 years old, Deebo Samuel, this year. 26 years old, he turned in January. So 25 last year, 26 now. So in his mathematical prime, in his athletic prime, as Trey Lance is trying to make an NFL career for himself.
Was it the only deal that got reported of substance was the Jets pick 10 and a 5th rounder for the Niners 2nd rounder in Deebo Samuel? It was something everyone was that's never happening. It was such a terrible deal that it was so easy for the Niners to not even entertain. And listen, we'd be naive to think there weren't other deals, but anyone, and if you're watching this, and obviously you and I a lot of people did because they played in a bunch of primetime games, witnessed what Deebo did. He's just not someone you can get rid of. He's not a replaceable player. Even when you do, and this is part of football, right? The math, the money, the draft pick, the future cost control, all that bullshit. At the end of the day, for the 49ers to be good, just like Nick Bosa, just like Trent Williams. You need to have 19. And part of football, and I think the Niners really showed this last year when they won 2 playoff games after climbing their way into the playoffs. And really, I would say 3 playoff games because that Week 18 game where Deebo Samuel ran for a touchdown, threw a touchdown, and caught a pass on that final drive in regulation to like put them in position. Like he literally carried them to the playoffs. It was MVP-like stuff from an individual. I know he didn't, he didn't.
He's one of the most valuable players in the league, period.
Yeah. He was the most valuable player on a team that was in the NFC Championship game last year to that team, right?
Definitely one of the most irreplaceable, right? Like is there another guy that you could have put in Deebo's spot? Not that you would trade Matthew Stafford, the Rams, but the Rams, there are other quarterbacks that could do for the Rams what Matthew Stafford could do, right? If they could go just get any guy. It's hard to find. Like this is where, to your point on Kyle and Deebo, not only is Deebo one of the most valuable players in the league, he is most valuable he is more valuable to the 49ers than any other team.
But like if the Niners, instead of having Deebo last year, would have had Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, they would have been screwed, right? Because Jimmy couldn't have just thrown it to them like they need to be thrown to, and they couldn't have done what he did, just turned into a running back.
Right. Or DK Metcalf or A.J. Brown, right?
Yeah, they could not have done it. And part of it, you and I have just been around him at practice for years. And the first time I remember going to a Niner training camp, I guess it would have been the year they won the Super Bowl, his rookie season. His body type is not your typical wide receiver, right? Crabtrees, Amaris, Ayuks. He looks like a running back. And let's face it, now we'll see if this changes with a new quarterback. Having Deebo Samuel run the slants and the deep ends, the plays that Kyle loves to run, he's fucking awesome at it. Because then once he gets the ball, it's just he breaks tackles in his, in the scouting community. I don't know, he's not like some 4.3 guy if you just put him in a combine right now, but his play speed is elite, right? Yeah. His play speed is just top notch. I mean, it's not quite Tyreek Hill, but how often does Deebo ever get caught? When
the line of scrimmage is the 25, it's almost never. If he's got to go 70 yards, different story. But from the 25, from basically the red zone, we saw it last year, he scored a bunch of touchdowns.
Yeah.
So I think ideally this is where Trey Lance comes into play with his arm strength. You can find the downfield element of the passing game and find some of that for Deebo as well. But
was it in a mailbag or a comment to us that Trey Lance has the best landing spot for a second-year quarterback since that Mahomes season? And, do you remember that question?
I do remember that comment. It might have been a mailbag question that we got. Yeah.
And if you just think of what this guy gets to inherit as, and Kyle even kind of said it, like, he's like, I'm kind of looking at him like a rookie because he hasn't really played. It's weird, right? Because he's a second-year guy, but, he started 2 games. It's kind of like his rookie season as a full-time starter, especially from the jump in training camp. He inherits a Pro Bowl tight end, a Pro Bowl ass-kicking wide back, a guy that his head coach thinks is going to be a stud in Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, who's an excellent third wide receiver, the best left tackle in the league, and a scheme that makes, they have question marks at offensive line, and we'll see when the pads come on this week. It's a big time for their offensive line the next couple weeks, right, to figure out like who's going to be the starters. But that's a position where in the zone scheme that you should be able to coach up and make functional guys. And then obviously I think the defense was good last year. They have more weapons now because they have more DBs. It's a pretty incredible spot for a young quarterback to kind of slide into. And all of his guys are happy, right? Deebo's now paid. Ayuk's in a great spot mentally. Kittle loves kind of being the star leader of the team.
Ayuk's a leader too, honestly.
Yeah, Trent
Juszczyk
kicks a shit out of everybody. Juszczyk, 17 straight Pro Bowls.
One thing just before we get to kind of the next part of the Deebo conversation would be, I think we have to say it's a win for John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, who once again, we talked about it the other day, they bank on their ability to handle awkward situations. They did it with Jimmy and Trey. Now, part of that is they bet on the right guys, right? Jimmy Garoppolo is not a guy who's going to make going to create problems. Trey Lance can handle it. They bet wrong on Reuben Foster, who I saw was just about to try out for the Seahawks or something. But they bet on their ability. They bet on their ability to fix the situation with Deebo. They bet that they could talk to him enough and that they could find the solutions and the money, that the money would solve this problem. And they did. And it happens that, A.J. Brown got his 57.2 and DK got 58.2 and Deebo gets 58.1 and he gets a little more money than DK on the 3-year extension. And he's under contract for, in theory, 4 more years. So it all happened around the same numbers. Like you said, that's not Cooper Kupp and Devontae and Tyreek numbers. But in the end, this group of guys all ended up in the same place in terms of money. 2 of them stayed. One of A.J. Brown got traded.
I would say the NFL historically, and definitely most of our life, I don't care what team, whether you're the Patriots or whether you're the Jags, weird situations happen. Every single team deals with them, and probably at minimum once a year. The crazier teams sometimes have it happen to them all the time, but it's unavoidable that you're going to have things like this that are just like, wait, our best player wants a trade kind of out of nowhere. And to me, there are 2 types of people, the Tomlins and the Andys that just always handle everything. And then they're just the coaches that feel sometimes over their heads and it just gets uglier and uglier. And it's like you keep throwing kerosene on it. Happened to like the Adam Gases and the Freddie Kitchens and usually the guys that don't last long. And you never truly know whenever you hire a new guy or a group how it's going to go. I would say that has turned out to be one of their greatest attributes because I think it's like where Andy and Tomlin thrive in just like because, again, it's unavoidable that weird shit and chaos is going to – wait, our star pass rusher just, just demanding a trade or beat up some people. Just it's football's modern day playmakers, right? Crazy things always happen. No one, once the season ended, would have imagined that Jeff Darlington tweet. And then it happened and it kind of got weird. And like Kyle said, it got weird for you guys on the outside, just kind of reiterating the same things over and over. I'm not thinking like that. Now, is that just an easy thing for him to say? Because we're like, yeah, what are they really talking about? Or they had similar conversations as some of us, for sure. But ultimately, another seamless transition.
Yeah. In the end, it's seamless. Maybe there were moments, even internally, where it wasn't seamless. But in the end, it's seamless.